Before I make some remarks of my own, I'd like to begin by gratefully acknowledging and saluting the board members, staff, and volunteers of the AT Museum and their work to conserve and interpret the rich history of the Appalachian Trail, and to recognize at least some of the many individuals who have contributed to its success as well as its culture. It's a remarkable story. Not unlike a through hike, it is a story of dedication and perseverance, as well as one of America's most successful conservation and outdoor recreation achievements. It's been almost 13 years since I retired from ATC, so there are certainly others here who are better qualified to talk about all the good things going on there and along the AT. So instead, I'd like to talk about my introduction to the trail 50 years ago. God, that makes me feel old. In the spring of 1975, I was completing a master's program in urban and regional planning at the University of Tennessee, and we welcomed a visitor to our offices. His name was Paul Pritchard, and he had recently become the new executive director of ATC, only the second in its history after Les Holmes. He had come there with the thought of potentially hiring a planner for the staff, and several of the professors pointed him in my direction. We visited for perhaps 2 hours, and he talked to me about the AT, about ATC, its governance, its federation of hiking and outing clubs, and their remarkable volunteers, and about the complex web of relationships it had with many federal and state agencies. And I was captivated. And he even hinted that he'd like to hire me for the staff. But several weeks later, he called to inform me that he simply didn't have the budget to hire me or anybody else for that matter. So I took a job with the university doing local assistance planning to several communities in East Tennessee. But during the next year and a half, I did travel to Harpers Ferry a couple of times to work on some volunteer projects there, and also went on some maintenance hikes with the Smoky Mountains Hiking Club and the Carolina Mountain Club. And my interest in the trail project only grew. But by the late fall of '76, I felt like I could wait no longer. So I accepted a job as a city planner in California and moved there to assume my new duties. 11 months later, I had another call from Harpers Ferry, this time from Hank Lautz. Hank had succeeded Paul as the next executive director of ATC. And he offered me the job as director of education at the conference. I accepted immediately, even though it meant turning down a promotion to assistant director of the planning department and taking a pretty serious payroll cut. But I loaded up my U-Haul and headed east and never looked back. I was motivated by 3 drivers. The first was an opportunity to contribute to the conservation of at least a slice of our Eastern American landscape, including a protected right-of-way for the trail. And also for the opportunity to continue to build and enhance a premier outdoor recreation experience for thousands and eventually millions of annual visitors along the trail. And finally, a fundamental belief in the capacity of citizen volunteers not only to build and maintain the trail, but to manage the lands and resources along its route. Those same values sustained me for the next 34 years at ATC, and they also represent core values of the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. And I suspect that they're shared by the 4 individuals we recognize today. Now, before I introduce our next speaker, I've been asked to mention a number of notable individuals here today. This is quite a list. In fact, I may not get through it without a pee break. This is what happens when you have a prostate the size of an avocado. Nevertheless, so I'd like to recognize first Cindy Waldbuser, the new incoming director, CEO, and president of the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. Rita Hennessy, former program manager for the National Trail System and also a longtime employee at the Appalachian Trail Park Office. Larry Van Meter, who became the third executive director of ATC and was a great personal friend and mentor to me. Destry Jarvis, former Assistant Secretary of the National Park Service and an ATC Vice Chair. Barney Mann, President, Partnership for the National Trail System, and past Board Chair of the Pacific Crest Trail Association. Mike Weinhardt and Bill O'Brien, past ALDA coordinators. And some of the previous inductees from the Hall of Fame, including Chris Brunton, Brian King, Bob Peoples, Lori Pottiger, Ron Rosen, and my sometimes work wife, Pam Underhill. And of course, all the board members, staff, and volunteers of the AT Museum. So thank you. So I'm delighted to introduce our next speaker, who is one of the movers and shakers of the AT Museum initiative, Mr. Larry Luxembourg.
Thanks, Dave. and I want to thank Dave for his past support of the museum. When he was president of the American Hiking Society, we borrowed him on National Trails Day a few times. In 2007, when we initiated our first exhibits, and in 2010, when we had our grand opening of the AT Museum. So I want to thank Dave for all of his past support. And I will. And I want to just thank in general the volunteers of the AT Museum. You know, it's so characteristic of the Appalachian Trail community that basically everything that's done at the AT Museum. Sorry, Julie, but we do have a manager. But otherwise, all the work at the AT Museum is done by volunteers. And particularly today, I wanted to also thank the two people were most responsible for the day. Jim Foster, who initiated the idea for the Hall of Fame shortly after the museum opened in 2010, and has continued to chair and steward the project ever since. And Lisa Kovach, a new volunteer for us, who organized this banquet and settled on the place and did so much to make today such a big success. And one more thing. Each year since we initiated the Hall of Fame in 2011, in addition to the inductees into the Hall of Fame, we've given one Lifetime Achievement Award, and that's been for somebody who's contributed to the AT community, but also especially to the Appalachian Trail Museum. And this year, we've selected someone who has not only contributed to the AT Museum, but also the Appalachian Trail Conservancy in a lot of different ways, and also the Appalachian Long Distance Hikers Association. A couple of weeks ago, Bill O'Brien and I had an argument about this. I said that that this person had actually saved Alda. Bill won. He told me that no, he hadn't quite saved Alda, but just the fact that I could seriously suggest that and come somewhat close in the argument shows that he did contribute a lot to Alda. But anyway, even in the last week or two, he's still been doing a lot of work for the Appalachian Trail Museum. So Steve Parody, if you could come up. So congratulations, Steve.
Thank you very much, Larry.
Next, it's my honor to introduce a woman whose decades of service to the trail through her work at PATC, including leadership positions there, for her service on our board, and most recently as her service as CEO and president of the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, and not the least for at least occasionally serving as de facto house mother for the Blackburn Center. Ms. Sandy Marr.
This wasn't what you talked about. So, thank you.
Well, as the head of ATC, you have to be used to surprises.
I am used to surprises, yes. Thank you very much. This is very meaningful to me. Oh. But don't go away. So, I did want to, though, I actually asked for just a minute here as a little surprise for Larry and for the museum. And, you know, there was this kind of inspirational quote that I think about sometimes, and I had it with me in my office because I also, right when I took this job, I got a gift from Barney Mann that had somehow made its way to California, which has always confused me a bit. But the quote was about a personal mission is like having a compass. It provides direction and helps you find your way when the trail ahead isn't clear. And what this is, and what I think it's now time for it to go home with the rest of this gentleman's office, is this is Bet McKay's compass. I know, we had it. Well, Brian knew we had it, right? And somehow it got to California for a while, which you can ask later from Barney. And because when we cleaned out the office that was at ATC, McKay's office, and sent it to the museum, and that was one of the first things I think I did after I got there, was go to the museum. But this I kind of held on to, I'll admit. But I think now it's time to go home, so there you go.
Okay, I'd like to once again welcome Larry back to the stage, as long as Jim Foster, chair of the nominating committee, to begin the inductions of our honorees this evening.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jim Foster, and it's my honor to be chair of the Hall of Fame Committee. This year, it's also known as the Tipton Family Reunion. Thank you for coming to this year's induction. Let me welcome you back to our Hall of Fame banquet after a brief pause of 6 years. This is our 15th class of the Hall of Fame, and we had a banquet each year from 2011 to 2019. I think you all know why we had to cancel the 2020 banquet. Since 2022, we've hoped to resume having a banquet rather than the inductions we've had since 2021. The simple fact is that organizing a banquet is a lot of work, and we haven't had somebody willing to do that. We are thrilled that Lisa Kovac agreed to chair the 2025 banquet. Lisa, please stand up again and be recognized. Lisa suggested that we have the banquet here at the Bavarian. We thought it was a tremendous idea. In addition to being an amazing venue, it gives us the opportunity to help our friends at Appalachian Trail Conservancy celebrate their 100th anniversary. Let me talk very briefly about the Hall of Fame's association with ATC. In 1925, a gentleman from New York State named William Welch chaired a meeting of people who were interested in making Benton MacKay's dream of a trail from Georgia to Maine a reality. That meeting was called the first Appalachian Trail Conference. Major Welch was elected to our second Hall of Fame class in 2012, and MacKay to our charter class in 2011. That name, Appalachian Trail Conference, was later taken by an organization that became the primary steward of the AT, and since 2005, it's been called Appalachian Trail Conservancy. A year later, a Connecticut judge named Arthur Perkins joined the project. Possibly his most important contribution to the cause was to get a young associate named Myron Avery involved. As you know, more than anyone else, Avery built the trail that MacKay had dreamed of. Both Perkins and Avery were in our 2011 charter class. This tradition has continued into modern times. In 2013, we elected possibly the most effective CEO that ATC has ever had, Dave Startzel. I'm honored and grateful that Dave has agreed to be our MC for this historic year. In a little while, we'll honor another CEO of ATC. My point is this. Since Larry Luxembourg first made public his dream of a museum to honor our favorite trail, our friends and colleagues at ATC have been our greatest supporters. I could say that we've returned the favor by electing many of them to our Hall of Fame, but that just wouldn't be accurate. Yes, we've seen fit to elect many leaders of ATC, but each one of them was elected purely on merit. What is accurate is that without the guiding hand of ATC and its leaders, there simply wouldn't be an Appalachian Trail. I would like to ask every present and former employee of ATC to stand at this time so that we can recognize them on the 100th birthday of their organization. Please stand, all present and former employees of ATC. Before we get started with the induction, I want to remind you that soon we'll be making plans for our 2026 Hall of Fame. In December, we'll open our site for nominations. We ask all members of the public, most important, all friends and hikers of the Appalachian Trail, to give us nominations. And we encourage you to nominate somebody, even if you think somebody may have been nominated, because frankly, one of the things that we consider in making our determinations is how many times a person has been nominated. We'll make a public announcement about nominations soon. They'll begin on December 1st. Early in 2026, the committee will look at all the nominations we've received since the very beginning and begin to select the class. We will announce the 2026 class in the spring, and we'll also announce the time and place for our 2026 induction sometime next year. We're happy to celebrate another solid year of progress at the museum. Our museum manager, Julie Queen, is doing a great job. We have some new exhibits at the museum. One is an exhibit on our children's floor that highlights some of the AT's youngest hikers. A flip book telling the stories of several of these hikers accompanies some of the gear they've used on their hikes. The second exhibit, Timeless on the Trail, features two of the AT's notable mature hikers, Nimble Nomad and Nan Riesinger. Nan is also a long-term volunteer at the museum. Gwen Luce is the person most responsible for these new exhibits, as well as most of our other exhibits. I hope you'll also get a chance to take a look at the Iron Master's Mansion. We took over operation of the Iron Master's Mansion in 2020. Under the leadership of our excellent innkeeper, Missy Shank, we've continued and even enhanced its tradition as one of the best overnight experiences on the trail. Included within the Iron Masters is the Hall of Fame room, which you see here. And you can see our very own Lori Pottinger, a Hall of Fame member, at the Iron Masters Hall of Fame here. We now have plaques for all of the classes, and the 2025 plaque will be installed soon. We also have a permanent display of all of our Hall of Fame class sticks. We also have a website which includes a virtual Hall of Fame. Our website is at www.appalachiantrail.museum. This is a new address that we've adopted in the past year. Don't worry, the old address of atmuseum.org will also get you there. Either one works. You can help us with our plans for the future, such as completing the Hall of Fame room and adding to our exhibits. Please consider making a generous donation to the museum's building campaign if you have the financial resources to do so. So on to the Hall of Fame. This slide shows the criteria for inclusion in the Hall of Fame. This year we're going to honor 4 individuals with induction into the Hall of Fame. It's our 2025 class. And once again, these 4 are a nice combination of pioneers who helped to establish the Appalachian Trail, along with some stalwarts who preserved and protected it in succeeding years. Once again this year, we'll give each honoree a custom-made hiking stick, which Larry has right there. These were again carved by John Baudet, an AT thru hiker from Tennessee. Who many of us know as Bodacious, his trail name. We're thrilled that Bodacious is with us once again. And if you haven't seen Bodacious, here's another picture of him. Thank you, Bodacious. We also give all honorees a certificate to signify their induction into the Hall of Fame. And this one is for Bob Peoples, and who's also present with us tonight, and we're thrilled about that. For the last several years, my friend Ron Tipton has helped me give out the awards. I imagine you figured out why he's not going to do that this year. Luckily, I have a very worthy substitute, our founder, our president, and my very good friend, Larry Luxembourg. So on to the 2025 Hall of Fame class. I'm going to announce the honorees in alphabetical order. And as you come up, please come around this side because there's a whole lot of cables on my right, your left. So please come around to this side. We all know that the Appalachian Trail starts in Georgia and proceeds through 14 states and ends in central Maine. The AT generally follows the spine of the Appalachian Mountains. But where do the Appalachian Mountains begin and end? That is a more complicated question to answer, especially if you consider some ancient historical evidence. I am talking very ancient evidence. Around 200 million years ago, most of Earth's surface was sort of smushed together into a supercontinent called Pangaea. At the places where the tectonic plates came together, a mountain range was formed, and geologists call this the Central Pangaean Range. Take a look at this graphic, which is courtesy of the site Atlas Pro. Along the range, you see the... sorry, I need to back up here. Along this, you see the present-day U.S., a bit of Africa, Canada, Greenland, and Great Britain. What does this look like to you? It's the Appalachian Mountain Range plus some more. And this slide shows you where the International Appalachian Trail is all over the globe at various places since Pangaea has come apart. In 1993, Richard Anderson, the commissioner of the Maine Department of Conservation, got an idea. Since the mountains in those countries had been part of the same range, why not put together a trail that links these mountains? Dick, with the help of other Maine conservationists, including Don Hudson, developed a plan to create just such a trail connecting Maine's Katahdin to Mont Carleton in New Brunswick and then on to Mount Jacques Cartier in Quebec's Gaspé Peninsula. On Earth Day, April 22nd, 1994, the proposal to build a hiking trail through the northern Appalachian Mountains was announced at a news conference in Portland, Maine. The idea became the International Appalachian Trail. Since then, this mission has been embraced in Greenland and Iceland and across the arc of the North Atlantic to Europe and North Africa. The IAT now comprises 23 chapters on 3 continents from Maine to Morocco. Progress to maintain and improve the trail experience continues in work with landowners, hikers, conservation organizations, and local, regional, and national governments. We applaud this as a logical extension of Benton MacKay's concept of a trail linking the Appalachians in the U.S. Unfortunately, Dick Anderson's health does not permit him to be with us today. Accepting induction today is one of the IAT's co-founders, Don Hudson. Don, please come up and say a few words.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Larry.
Stay for a picture afterward. Okay.
Well, first, Dick is tremendously honored. As you know, he's not a through hiker. Nimblewheel gave him his trail name, No Pack, because the one time they did walk up a mountain on the Gaspé, Dick kept asking Nimblewheel for water because he didn't have a pack and he didn't have any water in his pack. So No Pack is delighted by this. We're going to have a party on December 5th in Falmouth, Maine, and I'm going to try to reprise this somehow or other to let the people who are gathered there know what an amazing event this has been. I really enjoyed this morning. I'm trying to channel Dick, and I think what Dick would say if he was here right now, he'd give everyone else credit. Although it was his idea, he first gave that credit to Governor Joe Brennan, and it took us 20 years to get him to stop talking about Joe Brennan's idea. And I finally told him that I didn't want to hear it again. And that was that. We didn't hear it again. And Dick has finally accepted the fact that this was his idea. But the most important part of it, really, when I think about going to meetings in Ireland and Scotland and England and Morocco and Spain and Portugal, when people there want to know about how they can somehow or other connect their little towns, their rural areas to this incredible thing called the Appalachian Trail. They want a piece of the Appalachian Trail in their communities because they know that it was an engine for significant rural economic development. And Dick knew that. This trail idea, when we proposed it on Earth Day, because actually the governor read the speech and then he called me up to give the geologic rationale for it. When we talked about it, we talked mostly about thinking beyond borders, about the fact that our political boundaries are entirely artificial, and that plants and animals and people traverse these arbitrary lines on a map all the time. And the more we know about our neighbors, the more we share with our neighbors, however far they may be flung from us, the better off we'll all be. So that's what Dick would probably tell you. I asked him to write some notes for me, and he said, no, you can do it.
One of the more important projects of our Hall of Fame is to bring to a modern audience some of the lesser-known individuals who played critical roles in the early days of the trail. This year we honor another one, Walter Green. Before Myron Avery went to Maine, there was Walter Green. Green laid out the trail route in the northern part of Maine and did some of the first trail construction. He was a Broadway actor, believe it or not, who spent most of his summers in Maine. Green was the first president of the Maine Appalachian Trail Club. He and Avery met by chance near Katahdin around 1930. During the summer of 1932, Walter Green made several trips into 120 miles of woods between Katahdin and Blanchard to work out a route for the trail and begin to scout and blaze the route across the formidable barren Chairback Range. The original route of the AT from Katahdin to Blanchard was due more to his scouting than that of anyone else. He joined the famous Avery, Shearer, Philbrick, Jackson expedition of 1933 that blazed the trail from Katahdin to the west branch of the Pleasant River, and then led the group from there to Blanchard. He continued to explore and refine the route during 1934. In 1935, Green accomplished a lot through interactions with the civilian conservation corps crews who were building much of the new AT up and down the trail, and also the crucial cable bridge across the west branch of the Penobscot River. He spent the winter of 1936 making 40 of the signs to be used on the new route. His health began to fail late in the year, and he was hospitalized in New York in November. After a long battle with colon cancer, he passed away in 1941. He's not well known today because he accomplished so much within just a 5-year period and because he died so young. Accepting induction for Mr. Green is Janice Klain, president of the Maine Appalachian Trail Club. Janice, please come forward. We're grateful that you've come so far to be with us. Go ahead. We'll get pictures later.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So you just heard a lot of words that are going to be repeated in my speech. I'm not good at extemporaneous speaking. If you were a high school class of freshmen, I'd be fine. But And what Bill just read was a lot of what Dave Field wrote, and I actually had Dave Field check my work before I present it because we all in Maine check with Dave Field first. As the current president of the Maine Appalachian Trail Club, I'm honored to accept the AT Hall of Fame Award for the late Walter D. Green, the first MATC president. Many of you had likely not heard of Walter Green until you read or heard his biography for this award. In our club, we annually recognize a member who gives extraordinary effort or achievement to the trail or to the organization with the Walter D. Green Award. It's a fitting tribute to a local AT legend. And if you were at the interview this morning, you saw the example Tony Barrett brought his. Larry asked when it started, and I didn't have the information, but Tony would be happy to fill you in later on when we started that. Walter Green's tenure with the Appalachian Trail was brief but intense. His standard introduction, as you just heard, is the Broadway actor who single-handedly laid out a large section of the AT in what is now the 100-mile wilderness. Green spent much of his adult life in New York performing on the stage on Broadway, but with summers in a cabin in remote Willimantic, Maine, on Sebec Lake, near where I grew up. Willimantic, I can remember riding through, looking for deer with my grandparents, and riding through the woods out through Willimantic. In his exploring the Maine woods, he met Myron Avery, who was from Maine. He didn't come to Maine, but he was from Maine, on Wasatacook Lake, in behind Katahdin, as they say, and heard about the grand plan for an Appalachian footpath extending from Georgia to the highest peak in Maine. Already close to 60 years old, an advanced age in those days, he undertook to scout and blaze a path through a good part of what is now the 100-mile wilderness, from the west branch of the Pleasant River to Monson and Blanchard over the barren Chairback Range. These aren't high mountains, but they're challenging with peak after peak and frequent stream crossings, sometimes pretty hard to get across. If you've hiked the 100-mile wilderness, you've likely seen Monument Cliff on Third Mountain, where there's a plaque to honor the work of Walter Green and a stunning view over mountains, lakes, and streams. He later joined Avery and others in laying out the route of the trail south of Katahdin, over Whitecap, and back to the west branch of the Pleasant River. In truth, Green did not complete the trail construction single-handedly. He was able to coordinate some of that work with the newly organized CCC and some local woodsmen. Much of his preserved correspondence with Myron Avery was on the subject of payments to the men who performed the actual clearing work. And some of those correspondence were pretty heated. And Dave Field could tell you, he'd point you right to the right letters, I'm sure, if you asked about it. When the Maine Appalachian Trail Club was established in 1935, Green was selected as the first president. However, he was not physically present on the AT in Maine and spent the last several years of his life in ill health in a sanatorium on Long Island. As described by Dave Field, Walter Green's star burned bright in the early years of the Appalachian Trail. He was a singular character with diverse interests and remarkable energy and tenacity. I hope you will agree that his story is a good fit for those of the other Appalachian Trail heroes honored at the AT Hall of Fame.
Janice mentioned Dave Field, and you probably did notice some repetition in my comments and in her comments, and that's because of Dave Field. Dave Field, more than anybody else, is responsible for bringing not only Walter Green to our notice, but several other of the important upper New England pioneers on the trail, and Dave Field is just an incredibly important part of our Hall of Fame committee, and we really value his input. And he's a member of the Hall of Fame too. He's been a member for many years. Our next inductee is another less well-known person from the early days. Take a look at this picture. There's a group of men in suits just off work from their mostly government day jobs, sitting around a wood-paneled study talking about the trail. Sitting on the floor taking notes is Marion Park, who joined the Potomac Appalachian Trail Club in 1933 and helped edit its early newsletter. Then, in 1941, she replaced Harlene James, previous Hall of Fame inductee, as secretary of ATC, whom she had assisted since 1937. Marion served in that position until 1955. What did that mean in those days? It meant keeping records of all the ATC and crossover PATC meetings, and often going out in the field with speed hiker Myron Avery, you see him on the right, taking notes as he measured and noted deficiencies at the same time. The accuracy of these notes endures and was essential to the organization's governance, guidebooks, and maps in its first 3 decades. In addition, she was treasurer of the Maine Appalachian Trail Club from 1937 to 1957. On top of that, she and Gene Stevenson, previous Hall of Fame inductee, maintain a side trail to the AT from the Meadow Spring and Buck Hollow trails in Shenandoah. Every organization needs a Marion Park at its quiet center to keep it grounded, without recognition, documenting decisions and plans, and doing all of the things essential to its success. Accepting induction for Marion Park are Jim Fettig and Rush Williamson of the Potomac Appalachian Trail Club. Gentlemen, please come forward.
Pretty much what the speech, and I did write one out, is what Jim just said. But as you remember before, you know, Avery would do 20 pieces of correspondence a day, and Marion was one of the people that did that. Besides that, as Tom Johnson said in his book, From Dream to Reality, PATC was ATC and ATC was PATC. So not only was she the secretary for PATC, she was it for ATC, and all that information and things. And Avery never did just one project at a time. He had a whole bunch of things that he was doing. And the reason he was able to do that, because Marion and Gene Stevens and a couple of other people were the back room. Avery could go out and anger people or please people, but he always had a solid base of these women that kept things going. But she just wasn't an office person. As you heard, she did a very rough area in Maine to start the trail out there. She not only was the treasurer of Maine, but she initially started out as the secretary of the Maine Club. She did it very quietly and everything. Unfortunately, she wasn't married, so she had no relatives. And I appreciate you all allowing Jim and I to accept it for us. We will be donating her stick to your Hall of Fame room. We'll take this.
Thank you, Rush. Before talking about our next honoree's many accomplishments, I think that I should add a disclaimer. Ron Tipton is my good friend and is a good friend of many of us at the museum. He served on the Hall of Fame Selection Committee for several years. He's even helped me to give out these awards in previous years. So we're thrilled that he's been selected to the Hall of Fame. But trust me, Ron has been selected purely on his own merit and not because of his personal connections. This is not an inside job. Enough of that. Ron Tipton is what I like to call an Appalachian Trail lifer. Ron joined the Potomac Appalachian Trail Club in 1974, starting a lifelong association with the Appalachian Trail hiking and volunteer communities. He served on the club's Land Acquisition and Conservation Committee for years and maintained a section of the AT in Virginia for more than 20 years. In the 1970s, Ron was one of many key individuals who worked behind the scenes in Washington to advocate, promote, and lobby for permanent protection of the trail, a quest that ultimately succeeded when Congress approved the Appalachian Trail amendments to the National Trail Systems Act that authorized $90 million for acquiring land to protect the trail. He then accepted an assignment from the National Park Service Lands Office to use his hike of the entire Appalachian Trail to prepare a report on priorities for protection of the trail. Ron continued his association and involvement with the AT through the 1980s, 1990s, and 2000s, serving on the ATC Board of Directors from 1981 to 85, and is one of the founders of the Appalachian Long Distance Hikers Association, also known as ALDA. During his 14-year tenure on senior staff for the Wilderness Society, and subsequent 14 years on staff at the National Parks Conservation Association, Ron worked with ATC and the trail clubs to secure annual funding for protecting and managing the trail, including funding for major land acquisition projects in Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia, New York, and Maine. And I'll point out that this picture in the hiker photo database, as it says, it's retroactive. That's not Ron when he hiked the trail in 1978. That's Ron in 06. I don't know why you didn't get your picture taken at Harper's Ferry, but maybe that's another story. In 2013, Appalachian Trail Conservancy was in a difficult place. The CEO who was hired to replace the irreplaceable Dave Startzel had not worked out well. Luckily, the ATC board made an excellent choice this time and selected Ron. His skills and experience in nonprofit organizational management and fundraising were acutely needed for the furtherance of the Appalachian Trail project. Ron stabilized the organization, reconnected its strong relationships with the 31 trail clubs and dozens of agency partners, and raised more private and foundation money for the Conservancy than anyone in its history. After he retired, quote unquote, in 2018, he continued to work on the Appalachian Trail Landscape Conservation Initiative. He's also become an active member of the board for the Partnership for the National Trail System, the leading voice for the 32 national scenic and historical trails across the country. And we won't leave out the work he's done for the AT Museum, such as serving on the Hall of Fame Selection Committee. It's always great to welcome a new inductee into the Hall of Fame, but this time it's my distinct pleasure to welcome Ron Tipton. Come on up, Ron.
Okay, right. Well, thank you. This is like going to a college reunion, but even better. These two guys are just great. I mean, let's give them a round of applause right now. The time and effort they put into the Hall of Fame, and more importantly to the AT Museum, is really incredible. I want to recognize again Sandy Mara. In about 10 days, a lot of us are going to be in this room or in this building celebrating her retirement from ATC. and this is an unusual day. We've got 4 executive director, or well, different titles in different years, 4 leaders of the Appalachian Trail Conservancy, and that, you know, how often does that happen? Well, that's right. What we have? Well, I'm getting to her. Okay, we have 4. We have 4. We love each other. You wouldn't know it all the time, but you know. Anyway, Cinda Waldbuser. Cinda and I go back over 20 years, worked together at the National Parks Conservation Association, and then spent, you know, a number of years, you know, in the regional office for the Park Service in Philadelphia. And let me tell you, she worked with me. We had some management issues, shall we say, and she was really helpful at that time. She's become, when I heard that she was the person that was selected to be the new president CEO, I said, that is a great choice. Cinda, thank you so much for being, yep. And then before I talk a little bit more, I want to recognize Pam Underhill as well. Definitely, if you want to look at history and what person from the National Park Service or a federal agency had the most influence, impact, and positive results for this trail, it's Pam. So, they already talked about the Tipton family. It's actually the Tipton-Molyneux family. Down here we see Rita Molyneux. Rita and I, in this coming January, we will celebrate our first date. We will have been together 50 years. Now, saying that, let me just, and this is something that Rita doesn't like to remember as much as I do. I thru hiked in 1978. In 1979, CBS Radio did a program called Exploring America, the Natural Scene. It was a weekend program, and one of their segments was about hiking the Appalachian Trail. And so turns out they interviewed me to be in this segment, you know, with Charles Kuralt. Now, he didn't interview me, but he was the one who was talking about it. So it's broadcast on an October Saturday at 10 o'clock in the morning, and I don't know what they're going to say and what it's about. So I said, Rita, we got to listen to this together. So we listen, and Kuralt asks a question about, he said, now what did you feel about, you know, he goes in very dramatically, how reaching Katahdin, the cloud factory and so on, what was it like? And you hear me puffing, because they actually interviewed me while hiking. I said it was the most rewarding and emotional moment of my life. And she looked at me and she said, what about, we just gotten married that year. So I said, well, I meant before we were married. So anyway, just a few comments. I mean, Jim did a great job of talking about the various things I've been involved with. You know, it's 50 years plus of love for this trail and for the people that are on this trail, people that use this trail, the communities that benefit from this trail. That's one of the, if you talk about things that I think about that we accomplished when I was the head of ATC, you know, I certainly, you know, we did a lot more fundraising. We had more individual donors, foundations. That was very important. You know, we created the AT Landscape Partnership. That was partly my idea, working with the National Park Service. I mean, to take this trail and the corridor of this trail that Pam and others had resulted in, Dave Startzel, we pretty much completed the trail, but what about the larger vistas? What about the natural beauty? What about the scenery? What about the wildlife? You know, and so for now 10 years, the ATC has been leading and working with prominent conservation organizations up and down the trail, and it's a really, really important thing. The other thing, though, I noticed, I remember about was we had this program that wasn't mine, it was there when I came in, AT Trail Communities. What a powerful message that is. What a powerful presentation of the value of this trail, not to the hikers, we know, but the communities along the trail. These are not, real, urban liberal people. We're talking about rural America, small town America, but they love the Appalachian Trail. So that's been very important. Just a couple of other comments. By the way, congratulations to Dick Anderson. Rita and I are going on a trip to Mongolia in April, and we're going to be doing a day of hiking in the Aztec Mountains, which is, I believe, the terminus for the IAT. One last thing. Well, first of all, one thing I loved it was my dream job. I mean, imagine having been involved with the trail and to have this opportunity, and to call it a day of work, to go out on the trail, and I would do this when the thru hikers are heading north, and purposely hike south so I can talk to a whole bunch of them, not tell them who I am, find out what they really think about the trail and the experience they're having. Not just you're having a good time. So they didn't know who I was. And at that time, there was a lot of talk about all the drinking and drugs and so on. When I talked to these people individually or pairs of them, 90% or more said, I'm having a great experience. I mean, this is wonderful. And this is, for all kinds of reasons. And so, that was her final thing. I've gotten very involved again in the and with the ATC in a couple of ways, working on a conservation strategies committee. But the big thing right now is our 100th anniversary, and we have a centennial challenge, a 5-year program fundraising to raise $50 million. Now, of that, half of that is this is from private sources. Now, half of that we already know is in place, but the committee, and I joined the committee at the beginning of this year, and I'm now the co-chair of this committee. We know that we have $25 million to raise, and we're in the second year. We now are just over $35 million. We got a $5 million award from a foundation based in Boston. And the chances that we can reach our goal are very great. There are a number of donors in this room. Thank you so much. If any of you that are not donors or want to be information about, we've got a new brochure. It's really great. And the brochure talks about how this money will be spent. Wild East Action Fund, this kind of trail maintenance, good things, all kinds of programs that this is going to support. So please think about whether you want to be part of this campaign. I believe we're going to make this a goal, and I think it's going to make a great thing for the future. Thanks so much.
So this is the 2025 class of the Appalachian Trail Hall of Fame. I'm going to ask all members and representatives of the 2025 class to come forward again and be recognized. Please come up again so that we can get some pictures of you all together.
Jim, one more presentation.
Okay, sure. While he's doing that, let me... there is a book of remembrances for Gene Espy. It's part of the Gene Espy display. I encourage everybody who has a reminiscence of Gene Espy to sign that, please.
So, Jim, Bodacious had a little time on his hands and decided that he wanted to do one more stick this year. Bodacious, if you could come up and help me present it.
Oh my gosh.
So, Jim decided you've been handing out these, Bodacious has decided you've been handing out all these sticks over the years, and here's one for you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much. Good work. Well, thank you so much. I'm deeply touched. As I mentioned, please sign the Gene Espy plaque. And if you have pictures of today's events, you can either send them to. If I know your email, I'm gonna send you a link to a Google Drive. If you don't, just send them to Julie at manager@atmuseum.org. That's manager@atmuseum.org, and Julie will get them to us. So I'm going to turn it back over to Dave.
Get your shot.
Get in tight. Mine should come forward too. That's good.
You want the short one in the front, right?
You're not short.
Thank you.
Great, thanks.
Thank you.
I think that pretty much concludes our activities here. However, for those interested, we're going to have a panel discussion beginning about 2:30 across the parking lot at the Schwarzwald building in the lower level. I think the panel discussion is about the first 100 years. I also wanted to mention I forgot at least one special guest who actually may be out watching the football game now, but, and that's Tom Speaks. I don't know how many of you knew Tom, but he pretty much single-handedly negotiated a lot of the land acquisitions for the trail on Brushy Mountain. I think there were about 23 tracks involved, and they were tough. And then he went on to serve as forest supervisor for the Cherokee National Forest. He even did a stint as an assistant to the Interior Appropriations Committee in Washington, from whom we acquired about $220 million over the years. So Tom's a great addition to the group. But the reality is you're all special people. It's a special community, and we're so pleased you could join us today. So thank you very much for attending and your participation, and for those of you who may join us in a little while for the panel discussion. Have a good day.